Welcome to Sulzer Pumps. Your safety during this visit is of primary concern to us. Therefore, please make careful note of the points raised in this short film. We wish you a safe and productive visit. Your host will be informed of your arrival once your pass has been issued. A visitor's pass will be given to you, and this must be worn and visible while you are on site. Please read the safety leaflet provided to you by your host. Finally, please remember the pass must be returned to where it was issued when you sign out before leaving the site. The use of mobile phones is not prohibited on site. However, if you are required to use your phone, please ensure conditions are safe to do so. Examples are no walking and talking, and do not use when operating machinery or equipment. The fire alarm is tested for a short time every week. Your host will advise you if a test is due during your visit. If the alarm sounds continuously or is heard at any other time, then a fire alert has been triggered, and the buildings must be evacuated. In the event of an alert being triggered, you should use the nearest safe exit and go to your assigned emergency assembly point, details of which will be provided by your host. If you are unsure of the assembly point, please contact any Sulzer employee when outside the building so you may be accounted for. Do not re-enter the building until instructed it is safe to do so. A 10 mph speed limit applies to all areas on site. Please ensure you adhere to this when on site. Security will perform random speed checks to monitor compliance. Please ensure that you have parked your vehicle in a designated space as directed by the security officer, and make sure to display your personal details notice on the dashboard, which will be provided by security or reception. In the unfortunate event of you having an accident or receiving an injury whilst on site, the incident must be reported to your host. Trained first aid staff are available in all areas. If you are treated by your own first aider, you must also inform your host or contract manager. If an incident occurs which could potentially damage the environment, such as a spill, this should be reported to your host or contract manager immediately. Smoking and the use of e-cigarettes, vaping, is only permitted in designated areas and is not allowed when walking around the offices or workshops. If you wish to smoke or vape, your host or contract organizer will direct you to the nearest smoking area. The risk assessments and method statements for the work you are performing must be available at all times when you are on site in case any employee needs to verify the correct control measures are being complied with. These must have been provided to Sulzer ESH department and approved prior to your visit. If you have a pacemaker or medical implant, or you are pregnant or breastfeeding, this must be identified to your host. Certain areas generate electromagnetic fields, which can cause interference with medical devices, and we have processes on site that can present risks to unborn children. Upon arrival in the work area, it is the responsibility of yourself and/or your host to introduce yourself to the area supervisor. This is to ensure any residual risks that may not have been identified in the risk assessment are taken into account and, where appropriate, control measures implemented. If at any time you move to a different area of the site, you must introduce yourself to the new area supervisor and review the work being undertaken. While performing work on site, you should stay wherever possible in the designated work area. Do not enter areas displaying restricted access signs without prior authorization from your host or other authorized persons. Such areas include, but are not limited to, the test beds, paint spray, gas turbine testing, boiler house. Additional safety requirements may need to be implemented in these areas and should be discussed with the host and area supervisor and necessary permissions gained before work commences. All mains-powered electrical equipment brought for use on the premises should have a current appliance test label. All power tools must operate on a 110-volt supply or be battery-powered. Equipment without such a label must not be used. On request, we may be able to provide appliance testing. Eye protection and safety footwear is compulsory in all the workshops. In addition, contractors must wear an orange high-visibility vest whilst in the workshop areas. There may be additional requirements that have been agreed in your risk assessments, and in all areas safety notices will identify additional PPE that may be required, such as hard hats or hearing protection. When moving around the site, please pay attention to any notices and make sure you follow the requirements. Forklift trucks and other vehicles are in constant use throughout the plant. Please note there is a 1-meter exclusion zone around operational forklift trucks. Be aware of their presence and take particular care of reversing trucks or loaded forklifts where the driver's vision may be obstructed. Another common hazard is the movement of heavy loads using overhead cranes. You should never stand or walk beneath any load being moved by crane. Contractors are not allowed to use Sulzer FLT or cranes while on site unless prior authorization has been given by Sulzer ESH department. By the nature of the processes in some departments, spilt liquids and swarf debris are a potential risk. Be aware of the slip hazards that such spillages can present. Avoid walking through the spillage or any other wet surface following a recently cleaned up spill. In the event of a spill occurring during the work you are performing, please clean it up if possible, or identify the spill to the area supervision or host if assistance is required. Your host should have received a COSH assessment regarding any substances you are using on site. If you have any substances that have not been identified in this manner, please inform your host so the hazards associated with the chemical can be reviewed and the use of them approved. If you are bringing any mobile plant or machinery on site, this must again have been identified to your host, and copies of any inspections of the plant or machinery should have been submitted along with any certification required to operate. Ladders must have a current inspection certificate for them, and any mobile scaffold must be inspected prior to use. Certain high-risk operations will require work to be performed under a permit-to-work system. The type of work requiring a permit would be hot work, where sparks could be generated, any time you'll be working at height, any electrical work, any work performed in a confined space, working with asbestos, or work involving radiation. Before any work of this nature is performed, a permit to work must be issued and accepted by yourself. Sulzer operate a lockout-tagout system. This may apply if you are performing work on overhead cranes, compressed air, electrical systems, or work on machinery if you are disabling any safety features associated with the machine operation. This should have been identified in your risk assessment and discussed with your host upon arrival to site. Sulzer does not allow lone working. If you are in an area where you could potentially be classed as working alone, this needs to be discussed with your host and a method of monitoring your safety identified. Unfortunately, Sulzer does not allow any young person to perform subcontract work on their site. A young person is classed as anyone under the age of 18. While working on site, you must ensure that your activities are controlled in a way which avoids uncontrolled releases of emissions and discharges, and that any waste you produced is segregated and placed in the appropriate bins and skips. You must not take any waste away unless a valid waste carrier's license has been provided to Sulzer prior to your visit. If any hazards are identified either through your undertakings or you identify something on our site which causes you concern, we actively encourage visitors or contractors to report this to their host in order to investigate the issue. Following these simple rules and guidelines will help ensure that you have a safe visit. If anything is unclear, your host will be happy to assist you. On behalf of Sulzer Pumps, thank you for your cooperation.